Clepothic initiation will shift your energetic state into that of a vampire, and the energy field becomes more like a black hole. It inverts itself from the normal state of kind of being more emanative in nature, being more like a star, being more associated with the tree of life, and it becomes much more consuming in its nature because it has to go through this adaptation to experience the tree of death to the deeper degrees that it can actually be experienced. Because when we're talking about the tree of death and the deeper levels of it, or the deeper layers, we are talking about the primordial chaos. Into the average human energy field, this could be very, very pressurizing. So what it does, it inverts the energetic structure of the person who is going through these initiations. So what I mean by becoming a vampire isn't, what you see in the movies or even like mythology. The mythology in the Hollywood movies are actually deeply symbolic for the process of darker occult initiation and what that actually does to the energetic structure. Now, vampires oftentimes are going to be in association with darker extraterrestrial consciousness and even certain bloodlines that have a high level of influence over our planetary matrix today. So, a lot of the people that you're seeing in very high level positions of power, they're connected to bloodlines that are connected to darker extraterrestrial consciousness. And because of that, these certain souls, they will incarnate into the bloodline in order to kind of play a role for the mass collective, where there's a lot of control, there's a lot of manipulation, and there's a lot of dominance. And the reason why this happens is not only because it needs to happen and there has to be a healthy balance of, room to grow and restriction and catalyst that actually helps us grow more, but they're not integrating that darker extraterrestrial intelligence that kind of, runs within their energetic structure to a much deeper degree than it would the average person. And because of that, this can come off as a lot of sociopathic and a lot of narcissistic, very manipulating, very controlling type of behaviors. A lot of these elites are vampires. They're absolutely psychic and spiritual predators, which is why they're always doing things to grab your attention. They're always utilizing the major industries to consume your energy. So there's something known as the law of attention, and basically what this is where our attention goes, our energy is flowing, and this is why these vampires are always trying to distract you from yourself, and they're always trying to grab your attention. And once again, the way that they're doing this, even though it does serve the collective, they're doing it in the way that they're doing it because a lot of them have not integrated that darker extraterrestrial consciousness. Kind of like in the vampire movies, when a vampire first wakes up to being a vampire, it feeds on a bunch of people and it hurts people and stuff like that. But then as these vampires in certain movies get older, I'm thinking about Twilight right now, as they get older, they become more integrated, and a lot of them no longer want to harm people anymore. So it's kind of like that. They're just unintegrated, but they are vampires in association with these darker extraterrestrial forces that have a connection to certain bloodlines that have been existing for a very long time in positions of power on our planet. So a lot of the time, a real vampire is going to be a person that has a connection to these darker extraterrestrial primordial forces. So once again, this could be in this lifetime, through the physical bloodline and the ancestry. This could be in past lives where maybe we've incarnated as being a part of those different bloodlines. Or maybe in past life incarnations, we were a priest or like a priestess for some of these primordial entities, and we were bringing that current into the world. So when we're going through Klepothic initiation, we're connecting with our soul, which retains all of that data. So let's say it's like a past life. it retains all that data, and we start to become aware that maybe we were a part of a certain bloodline, or maybe we've had prior connections to a lot of the entities that maybe we're working with now in that past life incarnation, and we're going through a remembrance of those experiences. Vampires, whether they're the ones that are more so unintegrated or the ones that are actually operating from a more integrated state, meaning they don't necessarily want to hurt people, but as for the ones in like positions of power, maybe they understand, and once again, this is not all of them, a lot of them are unintegrated, but there are integrated vampires that understand the connection that they have with these darker, extraterrestrial collectives, and they understand that they're here to play a role that, yes, provides liberation and helps people become more aware of themselves, but also provides the necessary level of restriction and catalyst that is needed for the human experience to be the human experience, because as souls, we all incarnate to go through the experience of the matrix. So there has to be as much negative as there is positive. Think about two sides of a battery. Negative and positive is what creates power. So what I'm saying is vampires oftentimes incarnate to play the role of a divine catalyst for the mass collective to go through enough awakening to remember what it really is, so it can shift its frequency into a much higher level of consciousness, we can say. Even the one percenters and the elites that are sociopaths, and they're utilizing their knowledge of the occult in the form of psychic warfare that they're, performing over the collective, they come here to provide that very catalyst, even though they're unintegrated, and that's what's causing them to behave in that way. Now, going back to the clip-off, people like myself that have initiated through the clip-off to a very deep degree and have processed these experiences and have been through these experiences, we go through a remembrance that we're actually here to play a role within the collective that initiates a dying process for the rest of the world. And essentially what's happening is, through the principle of as within, so without, we're alchemizing and experiencing so much death energy within our energetic structure that it ripple effects into the mass collective consciousness, and it basically causes people to have to let go of what they are not, giving the whole collective an opportunity to raise its frequency exponentially. We are called to initiate through the tree of death to dissolve away the illusions that have been keeping us from remembering who and what we really are, and why we came here, in the role that we're meant to play as a divine catalyst. And essentially, this is what a vampire actually does. Whether it's the elites that you may know about, and a lot of them you probably don't. They don't show their faces, but they, are operating in very narcissistic, psychopathic, and even sociopathic ways in their attempt to control the collective, and these kinds are very unintegrated. Or it's people like myself that go through the tree of death and have a remembrance of what I'm here to do. People like myself that actually really truly do love people, but I'm also aware of the catalytic effect that my energy field can have on the collective consciousness, but it's exactly what the collective needs to experience at this time, which is, why I'm here and why people like myself exist. The tree of death is the realm of the vampire, and oftentimes as our energetic structure is shifting, we're actually remembering that either in this lifetime we might, have a certain bloodline connection that's connected to our darker extraterrestrial consciousness. I'm rushing because the video is ending. Or in a past life, we've been connected to these very primordial entities. So as we're shifting, we're more so actually remembering what we are, and we're channeling that part of our soul structure, remembering what we are here to do. Vampires are beings that have deeper connections to darker extraterrestrial consciousness, and we're often led into the clip-off to remember this.